Rule and from a bunch of other coaches. What was the highlight for you? What did you hear that really made you think?
Well, we're going to talk about the red zone thing, but I'm going to touch on it. I felt some guilt. I wonder what you guys think now. And Adam, I don't know how much you've talked about it. I felt some guilt for not having talked about Nebraska's red zone problems this year, not throughout the offseason, not emphasizing it, not emphasizing that they were dead last out of 136 teams in the FBS in opponent touchdown rate in the red zone, that they were 95th offensively in touchdown rate in the red zone. Matt Rule kind of brushing off what I always say, which is you better stop the run. You can't allow 4.82 yards per carry. Rule, if you listen to him, brushed it off. He said, it's not stopping the run. That's not the key. The key is the red zone. That was a moment that will largely define what I watch going forward on Saturdays. How are they in the red zone? And that tells you a lot about a team anyway. We'll touch on that more, though.
Well, let's jump to that. Adam, what was your takeaway last year from Nebraska's red zone struggles? Obviously, people are going to point to the line. That's the number one thing. Matt Rule had his own comment on it. What's your thought?
When you are top 20 in the country and the amount of times you get in the red zone per game, they average 4 red zone trips a game. That's up there with Oregon. That's up there with Indiana. Yet when you factor in touchdowns and field goals, in other words, the amount of points you scored, not just touchdowns, they were 66 in the country. And the stats that Sipple laid out went the other direction versus the direction you would like it to go when you just focused on touchdowns. The more you condense the field, the more, the tougher it is to pass, the more you're going to have to win at the line of scrimmage, the more you're going to have to run the ball. We had the Big Ten's leading rusher, yet the 80th rushing offense in the country. That's going to lead to issues within the red zone. Now, I hate that sack yardage is accounted for and rush yards. It should have its own category, but it's accounted for with every team in the country. So it's not just us because that affects the rush yards totals. But if you're going to try to score, and I remember that first drive, I know the Penn State game got away from us, but the first drive of the Penn State game, we went right down. Yeah. 4th and goal got stopped. And any chance we had of winning that game didn't end there, but the momentum might have been killed there. And then obviously it went the way it went after that. So you got to be able, I know he said it's not about stopping the run, but when you get in the red zone, it's about stopping the run. To me, in my humble opinion, maybe I'm hearing this wrong. Maybe he's describing not a bend but don't break defense, but it's kind of like you can move the ball on us, but we got to ball up in the red zone, which is kind of bend but don't break. Is that what you kind of hear when he says that?
Yeah, Connor. I'll just interject real fast, Connor, because I heard Belichick talking about. Have you heard that name, Bill Belichick?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
He got 8 Super Bowl rings. A lot of his. One of his staple philosophies is just what Adam laid out. We're going to be very strong in the red zone. Teams, they might get to the red zone, but that's when the sledding's going to get really tough. Mm-hmm. Make them kick field goals. That's his thing. Kick field goals. You can kick a field goal against. It's like the Iowa game. What was happening? Nebraska was driving, kicking field goals. Iowa was driving, scoring touchdowns. I mean, that's just one example, but it was one of Belichick's staples. And so I think Adam, I do think there's a bend or break element to that discussion. Go ahead, Connor.
Oh, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. I had my own takeaway with the defense last year, and I thought that Nebraska really had the passing D to get things done at times, but they were leaky, and the consistency was the issue. So when you have so much inconsistency, and I look back to the Nebraska defenses who didn't have those problems, I'm like, man, how do you change this? Is it a player issue? Is it a coaching issue? And I think the thing I'm most excited about is with the new DC, will he be able to get more consistency out of the entire roster as a whole? And will we start to see guys who play up to their potential and not slip when things get tough and not back down and start playing like they're, non-power 4 starters, even though half the time they look great and like they could potentially be going to the NFL?
Adam, I got it. Adam. Okay. Connor, we have to defer to the football genius.
Oh boy.
Well, there's a question that Bill Bush talked about on my morning show today. And he said, it's not unfathomable that a coach would say for the first, 6 days of practice, we're staying in the red zone. We don't need to do anything but red zone. It saves wear and tear on your perimeter guys, soft tissue injuries, corners and receivers that have to run long routes in the heat. It negates that or minimizes it. And it goes back to something you said, Adam, which is red zone's all about stop and run and running. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can extend that conversation to the Big Ten at large. I mean, it's a conference. You better be able to run a little bit. And if you don't stop the run, you can win some games, but you're never going to win big. That's why I get frustrated about it, because people always point to outliers. See, they won that game, Sip. They only rushed for 90 yards. Okay, that's great. Mm-hmm. All right, you beat Michigan State or whoever. But you're not gonna make waves in the Big Ten if you can't stop it and you can't run it. You will make some waves, but not big ones. I mean, you're never gonna win big.
Yeah, you'll beat the teams where you just simply have more talent, but you're not going to be able to out football the really good football teams who also have equivalent or greater to talent than you do. At a certain point, you got to be able to block, you got to be able to tackle. I think somewhere Matt Rule mentioned, I might be getting the exact verbiage wrong, I don't have the quote in front of me, but the outside zone or one of the zone plays to the boundary was one of the run plays they really struggled in stopping this year, which has always kind of fascinated me. To the boundary, you've got less space you're working with than to the field. But a lot of times you have one less defender because you have less field you're trying to cover. Like Osborne said, he loved short side option back in the day because there was always one less defender. So it's always kind of that conundrum. You know, do you put an extra defender there? Do you defend the wide side of the field where there's more space? It's a little bit of a conundrum there. So for me, another thing that Rule said, and I don't remember if this was at media days in front of the podium or wherever. I was on vacation last week. I was trying to enjoy vacation, but I was also trying to pay attention. He said, and correct me if I'm wrong, he said something to the effect of, we don't need to get tougher, we need to get better at what we do. Does that sound familiar?
Yes. Better players, good, tough. He said that the issue is not toughness. If it's just having better players, being better at players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's not wrong in the aspect of, if you're not very good at what you do and you engage with somebody, you can be a tough SOB, but you might get knocked on your back if you got bad hands, high pads, bad feet. Okay, so he's right about you need to be better at what you do. I might be really big, strong, but have no idea how to tackle. You might run me right over. So getting better at what you do, being better at what you do than the other team is at what they do, a lot of times that's what the red zone success or lack thereof is about, because there's not a lot of space to work with anymore. It's a lot more condensed.
And when you talk about being an expert at what you do, you go back to teams like Illinois, like Minnesota, even UCLA a couple of years ago when they came to Nebraska. I think 2024, Nebraska lost to UCLA and Illinois. They were 7+ point favorites in both those games. Mm-hmm. Last year, they lost to Minnesota as I think a 7-point favorite on the road. Those teams do not usually have more talent than Nebraska does, not better players across the board from a recruiting standpoint. Even not as good of NFL picks or as high of NFL picks in some cases. The issue is Nebraska's not good at whatever they've tried to do, and those teams are experts at it. They execute perfectly. They know what their objective is, and they always find a way to get it done. And they run all over Nebraska because of it. When really good teams come to the table and they're good at executing, they can stop them, but Nebraska hasn't been the one to do it. So I think that's a perfect example, and I see it clearly. I'm just hoping there's a answer.
Adam, would you keep them in the red zone for 5 practices?